Hi there and welcome, Greater Heartland region. My name is Clark Kendall. I serve as your regional technology trainer, and I am stoked to have a co-trainer in partnership here. Jess, hey.
Hey there.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here with you. This is
I
one of my
know.
favorite trainings to do.
I know it is. I know. Yeah, and welcome to our first co-training on this Facebook and YouTube Live. And it's kind of funny, like we've always done this on Zoom, but doing this, I don't know about you. I'm a little bit anticipated, like little nervous, but excited. I don't
Well,
know.
it is a different platform, but at the same time, I think it's really exciting to, try something new and see how we can better serve agents in our region.
That's
So
right. So Jess, tell us about yourself. Where are you at and what's your role?
Sure. So my name is Jess Weber, and I am the Director of Technology out of Chesterfield, Missouri, which is in the greater St. Louis area. I kind of fell into the role of Director of Technology and MCTT by learning everything I could as the Director of First Impressions. So I've been with Keller about 2.5 years and just having a blast.
That's awesome. Yeah. You've thrived in every single role and can't wait to see what's next for you. So we're talking about title today, Easy e-signatures, Docusign Made Easy. So we're going to walk through that basic like 101 process. And so the agenda that we have today, I'll be serving in the role as a listing agent. And Jess, you're going to be my seller, right? So we're going to have some fun with that, but also get the nuts and bolts of what you need to do to get your forms in order to get signed, right? Get them prepared for signatures and even show you what it looks like to get those signed.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So as you're here, you're present today, we've already got a good audience here. I'll go ahead, or if you're watching this later, if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the comments. We'll see those and be able to answer those. Or at a later point, if you have questions as you're watching it, maybe not live, feel free to put those in the comments. Also know that you've carved out the time to take this training. We honor that. And there are an immense amount of resources at your disposal. You have an amazing market center tech trainer and leadership in your office, NCA brokers that can help you in this transition as well. So while you're getting the X's and O's today, know that there are people close by to help you out. Also, there's an amazing tool for you called answers.kw.com. I'm going to put a link here in the comments in just a moment that will take you to the specific section on Docusign, an FAQ section, also step-by-step processes. There's tutorials, videos, very visual for any additional or to revisit any of these specific topics. So I'll put that in the comments here. However, before we get going, before we ramp up all this process, we have an agent spotlight. Jess, you found a great person to bring us on. So why don't you go ahead and introduce Josh here?
Yeah. So I know that when people hear Docusign, especially people who have been with Keller a while or been in other offices that maybe used other e-signature programs, they're always a little hesitant about using Docusign. So Josh Gullidge is an amazing buyer's agent for the Dillman team in our office, and he was a master of dot-loop prior to KW's big switch. And, just like pretty much every other agent, a little hesitant initially to dive into Docusign. And now Josh is one of my top agents in terms of mastering Docusign and using it at a high level. So I just wanted to bring Josh on for a quick second to kind of share about your thoughts and feelings on Docusign and kind of where you feel like you are now versus where you were, especially for those of us that maybe haven't touched Docusign yet or are just getting started.
Yeah, well, what's going on, guys? Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome.
Perfect. Yeah, hesitant to go to Docusign is putting it lightly. I would say dreading for months. Every time they would extend it out and give me another month with dot-loop, I was pretty excited until they were like, June 15th, that's it. I was like, uh-oh. And I'm a procrastinator by nature. So I was kind of thrown into the fire working with buyers and getting Docusign up and running. But really, it was, looking back now, it's been a blessing that KW made that switch. I didn't realize how unuser-friendly dot-loop was in certain areas. And just overall, I feel like Docusign is a better platform and program. And I can honestly say I write a lot of offers. I'm a top buyer's agent up here. So I write a lot in the car, in houses with people, and I've probably cut at least 15 minutes off of my offer write time, and nothing has changed. Just the fact that you can, you don't have to type in their name. You can just click the little full name tab. I mean, my gosh, what a savior that was. And dates. So that was automatically just cut so much time off. And then the fact that you can like copy and paste their initials. So like if you're going through a seller disclosure, like on the buy side, you just put it in the same time once, Control C and then Control V, and just every page, just go down and click. So that has been huge. And I never really utilized this with dot loop, so maybe it's the same, but there's not a whole lot of documents I automatically send to list agents just because, buyers change their mind to do something finicky. And once they've signed, it's automatically over there. But it is super helpful if you've already submitted a contract and you're negotiating and you need to make a quick change. So like I found out just recently, like yesterday, I was negotiating an offer. I found out we were behind. I just wanted to make one change. I just wanted to change the price, and that was it. And the buyers were all good on board. And I had another appointment. It was a dinner. And so I literally had it, sent it from the car, and had it forward automatically to the listing agent. And then I could just check my phone, and I watched the email come through completed, and I knew that the listing agent got it. So as before with dot loop, I was manually watching it. So, I mean, when Docusign first came out, I mean, Jess can tell you, I watched all her videos and I had to learn really quickly. So I did like test buyers, wrote contracts for I wrote a contract for my parents just as a fake contract, just to get up and running. Cause I was like, I'm going to have to write 4 contracts one weekend. And that obviously helps out a lot. If you start writing 4 or 5 a weekend, you get really good at it really quick, or you're just hating life. So, and KW has done a great job on like little changes and tweaks. I mean, there was definitely a learning curve. Jess can tell you when they first launched. I mean, it was a little frustrating, but I knew KW was working on it. And now I can't even remember the last time, Jess, I've had a problem that I've had to have you look at. And I mean, again, when you have a company this big all working on it, somebody's going to find each little problem probably daily. So, and I'm sure, I mean, I don't know if KW is yet utilizing the full Docusign capabilities yet, but I'm sure with Command getting a boost every couple months and Docusign, I mean, my goodness, I can't imagine what this is going to do for our business in the next year or two, and what KW and Docusign can launch together. It's going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah. Well, Josh, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and feelings about Docusign. You're right. I haven't heard from you in a long time.
Yeah,
so but we really appreciate you taking a couple minutes out of your day to come on and just kind of share about it from the agent perspective, because we as tech trainers can sit here and talk about how amazing it is all day long. We can be blue in the face, but nobody's going to listen to us the way they listen to you. So
it saves
we appreciate
you time. The time is so valuable. If you can get an offer off 15 minutes earlier and save you a bunch of hassle, it's worth it. You just got to commit to it and write a few contracts, and you'll learn real quick what you need to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, Jess, ready to get rolling?
Bring it on. Let's do this.
All right. I love what Josh said there, because yes, Docusign is a robust program. We have a great partnership and we're developing more and more things. So stay tuned towards the end. We'll share a little new update that happened just today, July 15th. I don't know if we'll be able to demonstrate it all. We just got a new release, something that's going to save you even more time. So little teaser there to stick with the end, or maybe fast forward if you've already known a lot of this. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and let's get going. I went ahead and put that link in the comments there for that Docusign answers.kw.com. All things articles for Docusign. So there's one specific thing we talk about and you want to see more about that, it is in there. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen, choose this one here. And there's a page that'll give you a link there, what Docusign looks like, or all those articles there. So Tuesday, 2 days ago, we did a training on opportunities. We were Facebook Live. I went through that and we walked through having a contact and create an opportunity, all the amazing things you can do as a business owner, but also to manage the transaction well and not to drop the ball on any things you do for your clients, right? So we're going to begin in that process. And so I am now in an opportunity. So Jess, you're my seller, right? And I'm your listing agent, right?
Yep.
So I told you we are going to have fun with this. And so the property we're selling today is 93 Diagon Alley.
Love it.
That's an actual address in what's a certain series that we might be fans of.
Possibly. I think I've heard of it once or twice.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. So I'll leave that to maybe researcher. What is 93 Diagon Alley? But it's Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
But that's an actual one in the book. So anyways, we're going to sell this property, and we've already created the opportunity. We got everything filled out. Where we left off on Tuesday was this documents tab, and we introduced this layout, exactly what compliance looks like on Tuesday, but we're just focused on Docusign today.
Mm-hmm.
A little refresher, we have to pick our checklist type, right? Here's the challenge in this training is that Jess and I have to be very general about how to approach this, because from here on out, there's going to be some nuances and specific ways that your market center sets things up that will not look like exactly like this. The general flow will be the same, yet the documents will be different. The libraries will be different. Your checklist here will be different. So that's okay. But make sure that when we begin this, you choose the right checklist as your market center compliance team coordinators have instructed. And we'll go ahead and choose residential here as my market center's got it set up. So I've got this checklist chosen, and we have to get started in Docusign. So we're going to hit the Start a Transaction button. Now, as mentioned on Tuesday, in order for this Docusign button to be appear here, you have to have your Docusign account connected within Command. Okay, and there's an article within the Docusign link that's in the comments there. So we're going to go ahead and hit Docusign. And just what magic happens when I hit that Docusign button?
So there's beauty in the way that Keller has built its systems. And when you have things connected appropriately, what happens is your transaction room, or for those of you that are former .loop users, a loop is generated in your Docusign account for you and automatically connected to Command. So they can now talk to each other. They are linked to each other, and it's just a one-step click. A lot less information that you have to type manually, which is also fantastic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll show a little bit of that data, at least the data that I had that I've put in so far. And it's not everything that you would probably have for your contacts, your database, and the transaction, but we'll demonstrate that. Before we jump into what data has come over, just a quick little overlay here. You notice as soon as I hit that Start a Transaction button, it took me to this page called Docusign Rooms. Now, if you spend any time in .loop, if that's your current e-signature, something you used in the past, equate a Docusign room with a .loop loop. I'm sure there's other parallels with other e-signature platforms. So while we're in this Docusign room, this is the virtual transaction room. This is where you'll bring your documents in, okay? And you'll also begin to prepare them to send them off for signature, and you'll receive them back all in this virtual room that we call a room. So you'll see that here defaulted to a tab at the rooms. More than likely, this is the tab that you spend the most time in. Moving down here, we do see the opportunity details that we had in Command automatically come over. We've got the name of the opportunity and when it was created, or when the room was created. And you'll notice these tabs. So it'll be important to know which tab that you're living in or what you're working on. Now, it defaults to documents. Okay, so as soon as I hit Start Transaction, it took me to the document section of my virtual room here. All right. So right now we don't have any documents in here. We're going to get to that. Yet also, we're going to kind of work through what the flow of this Docusign room is and explain why it's important. So let's go over and jump into details. Jess, what's a good definition, or what does this details tab provide for us?
So the details are, in essence, all of the pieces of data that typically appear on your forms, your contracts, your documents. And so this is a place to manage all of that data and edit it as needed. And so the great thing is a lot of the data that you do see that populates here is data that came over from Docusign. So from Command. So if you're spending time in Command, putting in your client data and data about the transaction, when you hit that Start a Transaction button to create the room, it should be pulling some of that over. And then you can go back, like Clark said, and edit and add to any element that you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. So the great thing about this is whatever information's present in here, and again, this isn't fully filled out for, I mean, one is just you had your contact record, and we won't make all that public, right?
Sure.
Right. So know that the cool thing about these details, when we go to bring in the forms that you need that are either for your state forms, your local board forms, that we've done the work with Docusign that it's going to map whatever those forms are and pull that information automatically to the forms where it needs to be. So if it's here, you know what's going to be in the proper spot for that form or that document you need to send off. Okay. So that's the nice thing about this. I'm going to go ahead and just for demonstration purposes, fill out a few more pieces of information. So if there's anything that you need to change in this details page, this edit button is where you get started. So I'll hit edit. I'm going to go ahead and put your name in here, Jess.
Yep. And you're allowed to put my email too. I don't mind.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I will pass on the phone and know that there are, for the sake of time and efficiency here, you know that if we filled this stuff out of where it'll go on the forms and you'll see blank spots on the form, it's because we just didn't put it in the details. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and put
None of these pieces of data are required to start your documents. And that's one thing that I think agents kind of worry about when they see this detail section is it seems like it's overwhelming and there's a lot of pieces. And you see, like on that location section, the required to close in red. That is if your market center happened to be using Docusign for compliance, but most KW offices are not. They're using Command. So again, you only put in what you need to use for your forms, not every single piece of data ever.
Yeah.
Because of that fact. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Just put in a zip code here, fill out a few bit more information. I've got your name, I've got your email address. That's going to be important. You'll have to have an email address if we're doing signatures because that'll be what needs to be delivered. But know that the property address might be different than the actual client's address. So because they might be selling a property that's a second home or vacation home or anything else. So the location, the property of record of the transaction will be the location here. So probably take a half step back. As you're seeing here, all the information about the transaction, the property is on the larger left-hand side of this details room. The parties of the transaction are going to be on this far right-hand, kind of this more narrow section of the page. And so it begins with seller one. If there were seller two, we would have that there. Below that would be the listing agent, okay, and also listing agent two, buyer one.
And Clark, just while we're scrolling, if you don't need those, that little tiny arrow next to the title of each field hides the boxes so that it's a little less overwhelming and a little less scrolling, which I really like.
Absolutely. Yeah, because at least at this point, right, me being the listing agent and knowing there would eventually be a buyer, I can't put that information in there. And any time we could possibly get that if we want. So I will go ahead and put in my information here. And as a listing agent, one thing that I'm aware of right now, just while we're demonstrating this, when you hit a start a transaction for your account, your information will be automatically populated, whether you're the listing agent or the buyer's agent. Okay.
Yes.
And this account specifically, this is kind of a labs account, one that we train out of. It just doesn't come out. So that just know that yours, you will not have to fill that out. So, but I will go ahead and put in email there and move forward. All right. So I'll go ahead and save that. We could fill out all the rest of the details and then that would be all well and good. But that's essentially the transaction detail as far as the transaction that we have. Now let's go ahead and move on to the documents section. We will end up pulling documents in here. Okay. And we'll walk very detailed in that process. One thing to consider while you're having these documents is to know that you do have folders within this documents tab. There is one folder that's automatically created for you called the room docs folder. This is kind of the inbox if you want to kind of visualize it or understand it as such. If you manually upload PDFs from the MLS or something that you received in an email from an agent, or you can actually automatically email PDFs into the room. That's probably more 201 stuff for a later date, but it would all be coming to this room docs. So as we move forward and you have other docs coming in, whether it's for agency agreements or your first under contract offer that's in action or inspection, you can create folders for every single one of those, right? So in order to do that, this is you want to be mindful of this. It is under the actions button. Okay, the add button is what we do to actually add documents, but the actions button, that's where we want to add a folder. So if we're just going to be, because what we're going to walk through is signing an agency agreement, right? So my process has been, and you'll create folders that make sense for you, right? Or you might not have any extra folders if you want, but it's kind of a best practice. But I always like having agency agreements separate, a folder for that as opposed to my under contracts or my other offers. Okay.
Yeah, and I've heard it done a lot of different ways. So that's one way. Another way is people like to separate their forms that we're going to show you, their templates versus their signed documents. Others like to do it like if you're a buyer's agent like Josh was, he will do it per offer. So you would have one room for your client, but they may be putting in 5 different offers. So you have 5 folders for 5 offers. So there's truly, a million different ways to do this. And that's where, as Josh was mentioning earlier, playing with Docusign is going to be your best friend to figure out what system really works for you before it's crunch time. Because that's my worst fear is when, an agent calls me at 9 o'clock on a Friday night saying I'm in Docusign for the first time and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm trying to walk them through getting an offer in over the phone, which is not an easy task.
No, it is not. No. And a couple of great points there. One, I mean, as Jess and I are doing this right now, practice with a colleague, another agent in your market center, right? Say, hey, you be my agent and I'll be your agent. We'll just practice this together. Practice before it counts, for sure. Another point that you made there, Jess, is how Josh was laying out the different offers that he is putting out for one client. So that's an important note. That going back to Tuesday's training, when you create an opportunity for a client, if that's an agency agreement, right, that they are your client for one transaction or one opportunity, there's no need to ever create another opportunity for that transaction, right? Similarly, there's no need to create a separate Docusign room for a different under contract. So Jess, if you're my client and say we get under contract for Diagon Alley and we get all the under contract forms in here and it just falls through.
Right.
I don't have to create another opportunity. I don't have to create another Docusign room. I just create a separate folder and we go for it again. Right.
Right. And we tweak those details. So the name of the room might change if Diagon Alley falls apart.
Yeah.
So that's where, when you're naming your opportunities and you're naming your rooms, if it's easier to name it by the client than the property address, if you're working with a buyer, go ahead and do that. Again, it goes back to building a system that works for you, that makes sense to you. Don't just do it because you saw it on a YouTube video. Really be purposeful in your organization and pick a method that's going to, be scalable for you as your business hopefully grows.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. All right. So before we bring in documents, go through these other tabs here. The people tab, this will be the folks that will automatically be a part of your market center. So I see my broker in here. I see my market center in there. Those will automatically be there. So just a question we often get as tech trainers is like, okay, this is where I also add my buyer clients or my seller clients. And in short answer, no, you don't have to add them here. And really it's best practice not to, okay? Because as long as they were in this details section here, that is enough for Docusign to be able to have the information that we need to send them the documents to sign off and then to receive back. They'll be able to save their files at a later point and also get a copy after it's all said and done. So there's no need to add your clients to this people section.
Agreed. And I know some agents who in Dotloop and things like that, they used to have a habit of adding every single person that was related to the transaction, like their inspector. I heard of lenders. I heard of title companies being added to the loop. That is not best practice. So I would, again, just like I wouldn't add my clients to the people section, I would not add anybody that is not a KW associate to this section. We can show you as we move forward how to easily email them bulks of PDFs or individual PDFs. And And if you need to keep a note of everybody's contact info and who is on that transaction, that would be great information to not put in Docusign, but put in the command opportunity notes.
Absolutely. Yeah, love that. Great. So that's a people section there. You probably won't have a lot of activity here unless there's somebody, a team member, right?
Mhm.
Now, if we're talking about teams, we are having team trainings at a later point, and we can
Right.
answer those questions. Yet, if somebody isn't if you understand opportunities and you're on a team, there's an assignee to the opportunity. The great thing about putting the assignee that people are going to have their hands in on the transaction, doing the work, if they're an assignee on the opportunity and they're a Keller Williams associate, then they'll automatically be out of this room. They'll be able to log in their own Docusign and help out in this transaction.
Mhm.
All right, so when we jump back over, we'll jump into envelopes here. We are going to create an envelope here in a second, but just know that an envelope is the sending of the documents off for signatures. Okay, again, knowing that a lot of our agents are currently or previously used Dotloop, that was the send and or share and send button, or is that what was?
Right.
It's been a bit, Jess. It was sign and
If
share.
you know what, like Josh said, we've been in Docusign 100% for a year today.
Yeah.
Like today, a year ago, was the day we ripped off the Band-Aid for 400 agents in Chesterfield. And today was the day that my life ended last year for a little while I trained everybody in Docusign because they ignored me for the 6 months previously.
And now they're all coming on live streams and thanking you.
Exactly. So proof is in the pudding. You know, I mean, Josh literally a year ago was not logged into Docusign until the day that we turned off Dotloop. And now, like I said, he's the one that I go to for things. And I'm like, did you see this really cool feature? And he's like, oh, I already used that. And I'm like, never mind then. I can't teach you anymore, Josh, you know?
That's awesome. Yeah, so whatever that might be called in Dotloop, whenever you share and send off your signatures, that's what we call an envelope with a few additional features that we'll talk about. Other things here, history and messages. Messages really aren't used quite often in Docusign. I think it's just an additional piece here that you could chat with other people in your transaction, but we don't really spend a lot of time in there. So let's go ahead and jump into getting our documents into this Docusign room. Now, this is, of course, is a listing room, right? Transaction room. So what we're just going to focus on right now are the two most important that we will have is listing agents. That's an agency agreement and a seller's disclosure. Okay. Now, depending on your area, you might need other forms. That's fine. The process is going to be the same. So we're going to hit this add button here and click on Docusign Forms. Okay. Now, there's other ways to bring forms, quote unquote, or I guess documents into the Docusign room. However, the magic of this Docusign Forms is, and bringing them in this way, we have done the work with Docusign, and Docusign continually maintains these as there's new versions or new forms coming to your state associations or your local associations. They're up to date. All right. So when you click on this Docusign form, you know you're getting a form that has been mapped and easily carries over all the necessary, the pertinent details, contact info of the transaction. So we'll click on Docusign Rooms. And from here, this is where it will begin to look very, very different for you, unless you happen to be in my market center. Or if you're, I guess, in my market center. Real quick here, there's a few sections. Focusing on the left-hand side, you have these groups, all right? Know that these groups they look like little different folders. Each folder is a compilation of different forms based on different libraries. All right. So everything is driven by libraries. Docusign and every single office market center works on what forms just that office needs. And you'll see here that I got the Missouri Association of Realtors and our local MLS and our local St. Louis Association of Realtors. Each one of those are entities that say, hey, we need these forms to be mapped. So if I were to click on this St. Louis Association of Realtors, I think we're low 70s now.
I think we're something like that.
Yeah, like 70 forms. So every single, what we call SLAR form is present here. And I can choose any one of these to bring into the room, right?
Yes, and those are the same across the board. So I think of library as the large entity that everybody pulls from. It's that big pool.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I like that. So if I were to look up listing contract, right? So which those are the same, we got a little repeat there. But this would be the form that I would want to bring in to have Jess to sign this agency agreement, right? So that's what it could look like if I didn't have these groups. I would go choose, okay, this is a listing contract or listing transaction. I need the listing contract. I need the seller disclosure. And I would manually choose all of these, right? So the glorious thing about these groups that your market center has done the work for you, I'm going to put an asterisk there. Okay, these are a progression, right? So if you're joining in and the groups aren't necessarily present, or you feel like there could be some recommendation in these groups, reach out to your market center tech trainer and let them know. So in my market center, we've got we're going to focus on this list. This listing docs has, it has all the forms that did we just go blank? Are we back?
We're back.
I think we're back.
I got you.
All right, awesome, thanks. You might end up having to take over at some point if we go blank. So when I click on the listing docs group, you'll notice here that there's still a long list here, but my market center has marked some that are required for listing transaction. You'll notice here that the listing contract selected and also can quickly choose the required forms, the seller's disclosures right there. So just a faster way to get the forms that you need for that type of transaction. It's going to look different for every different single market center. Jess, I'm sure you're saying, that's a different approach than what we have in ours.
Yeah, it looks similar, but definitely different. And that's the beauty of the market centers, again, figuring out what system works for them and their agents. Oh no, I think Clark froze on me again. We'll see. Clark, did I lose you?
I'm going to go ahead and add these selected here. Are you there? Are we back?
Yep, you're back. That's exciting. You just keep pausing in fun positions.
Oh, I'm sure. That's the way it works out.
Well, it's okay. I will make sure that if there's a really good face, I screenshot it and post it to the page later for you.
Cool.
So, and you can do the same to me if I freeze. It's a two-way street. So.
All right. So I've brought in, or I've selected the listing contract and also the seller's disclosure. Okay. So those are the two that we're going to prepare. Me as a listing agent, Justin, you're going to eventually sign and do the work there. So, and it might be that I do still have a slow connection here. Let me close out a few things.
The curse of technology.
I know, that's the way it works. So let me.
And just so you know, for those of you watching, sometimes you do have it actually go that slowly. Just be patient.
That's right. All right. And it's also possibly loading slow because of my connectivity. So sorry about that.
It's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you.
Thanks. I am going to, just with the connectivity, I'm going to give this another go. I'm going to hit refresh and try it again.
That's fine. There we go.
Okay, they came in. All right, so down here, you'll notice that they did come into the room docs, right? Now it's got listing contract and the seller's disclosure. So let's begin to prepare these. I'm going to go ahead and start with the listing contract. So I would click on that form, and then there's going to be a little pop-up, and that's going to be the structure of the form. Now, again, as noted, because we had this information in the details section of the room, just the name came over, the address came over. I didn't fill in the listing address, the details. I could do that. Let's say if we're going to list it today. But this is the magic that we've done with Docusign. They've mapped all this out for you. They know that this field is connected to the other field that's in details. Now, another nice thing about this is, and this has been some approach for some of our agents, is they'll just start with the agency contract. They may not even go to details and fill everything out. They'll be like, well, I know the information I have to have is on this form. So if I were to come in here and list the home at 500,000, when I go to save this, that's going to automatically transfer over into the room details, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing that I wanted to say while we were on this discussion was be conscientious of the fact that it's a two-way street. So if you edit a document, it edits the details. If you edit a detail, it edits all the documents.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's a thing that throws off some of my agents because they may go in and they may tweak one thing and then they're like, wait, it's showing wrong on every other document. I'm like, that's because they're connected. So truly understand that it's a two-way street and both can affect each other. Yeah. So example would be like an LLC or something, or a living trust selling a property. You change the name and you put that in the details as a client, but then on the contract, you list it as the LLC or the living trust. It's going to change every other document to the LLC or living trust. So just really pay attention to what you're doing and be smart about what you're reading, but understand that that is the way that those work. It looks like I might have lost Clark. So this will be fun. What the other thing that I want to tell you about this section though is you are editing the document as the agent yourself. So what that means is all the fields that you can see here are agent fields. They're the part that the agent completes, not the client. So on the listing contract, that's pretty normal and people are aware of that. When we head over to the seller's disclosure, you'll see that there's not a lot of fields on the agent side to fill in. So that's why we wanted to show you that document yourself. The document section is the main area for agents. The envelope section that I'm going to show you next is the main section where you prep everything for anybody who's not an agent, your client, your broker, anybody else. So you have agent portion and documents, and then you prepare those in the envelope. So there, Clark's back. Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe. Sorry, I'll have to figure out what's going on. We haven't had this issue.
It's okay. You know what? I'm so good at talking, whether somebody's here listening or not. So it's just dandy. I was going to say, if it's easier on you, I can totally pull up a couple of documents in one of my test rooms and show you, or we can continue the conversation if you're worried about your connection. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, let's keep rolling. And let me actually just try sharing a window and see if that helps at all.
Okay.
We'll keep rolling. I mean, hopefully
bring it on.
Reset that.
So while you were gone, I mentioned that this is the agent section and we prepare the clients in the envelopes, and so it's a little bit different, and you just have to keep in mind that this is the agent only side. That's why we don't see initial boxes for clients here. Right. And that's why we brought in the seller's disclosure to show you really the differentiation between agent and client preparation.
Yeah, great point. Actually, I want to share this screen here because I know there we go. Yep, right. Because we can't change these little signature spots.
Right. There's nothing there for the client. There are no signature boxes because, again, this is the agent side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to speed this process up, trusting you know how to fill out your own forms, right? We prepare this entire document, right? And yet there's no spot here for owner signatures. That's going to come at a later point. And we'll go ahead and save and close this, knowing that one's prepared. And also, on a seller's disclosure, typically, depending on what how your broker best suggests, you might fill out the address or anything else. That's fine. But the majority of this is also untouchable, right? The agents can't touch that. The sellers would fill this out. So all this is completely at a later point, just like the initials, just like the signatures your clients will do. They'll all fill this out. Okay? So not much to prepare there. All right, so save and close that. Let's go ahead and get this going over so Jess can get this thing on the market. All right. So here, in order to send off the documents that you need for signatures, you want to select the ones that are being sent off. So by selecting these two, or whenever you select one document, this little create or this little tab or this bar will show up at the top, and we're going to be focused on this pin that says create envelope. Okay, so when you create an envelope, again, equating that envelope, that's the vehicle that's going to send these off to your clients for signatures. you have this envelope's details page. Now the envelope name, one of the best practices I heard is what is the purpose of that envelope? Okay, you might make sense of that. This would be the agency docs. You'll be able to see the envelope name. Your client won't necessarily see that. So that you know that that's helpful maybe at a later point when you go to revisit these envelopes. Why did I send off this envelope? What was the purpose of it? Okay. So we see our add documents to envelope. We've already got those selected. So these already come in here. We'll revisit this in just a second.
You can, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say,
no, go for it. Go for it.
Bad habit. I apologize. No, I was just going to say the great thing about the add documents section is you can actually reorder them here. That's a thing that people always ask me because they were so used to ordering them in .loop. So if you hover over it like Clark is doing right now, you can select and drag these back and forth like cards and order all your documents that way. And if you need to add something from the room, like you thought you clicked 3 and you only clicked 2, that's where that add document section comes in, and then you can pull extras in. So I like the reordering because that's a question I get a lot. Yeah,
for sure. And because, I mean, at least in the state of Missouri that we're familiar with, we have to present a Missouri broker's disclosure form, right? So ideally, ask your broker in your state, like, is there a certain order these forms need to be presented for e-signatures, right? I heard it's been suggested that Missouri broker disclosure in our state needs to be presented first in this order. That way, when they're scrolling, it's like, okay, they've seen the Missouri broker disclosure, then they're reviewing the agency agreement. Lean on your broker.
Yep.
So here, add recipients to the envelope. This is where we have to be purposeful in our choice on getting the proper signature spaces, and this is where it's going to be leveraged for you and saving your time. So make sure we choose the right one here. It's pre-tagged roles. Okay. By choosing pre-tagged roles, it's going to say who are those sellers, that buyer and seller that were in the details, and where do they need to do the things they need to do on the documents that are in this envelope. So we've got seller 1, and this is important. You have to check the role that you're sending this out for. Okay. So of course we've got one seller in Jess here. I'm going to go ahead and be clicking the drop down here, and I'm going to choose Jess at the bottom here, and I got your email in there. So that's what we need. By checking this box and putting Jess's name here, Docusign is going to read the 2 forms that we have in here and then apply the fields, the proper fields, and her responsibility within each one. All right. Now, also depending on your market center, you do want to choose a listing broker, or if there's a broker spot there, in order to send this off. And again, depending on your market center, if you have the drop down and your broker is there, then great, you can choose them, as mine is. However, if your broker is not listed here, don't choose that. Okay? Because let's assume that your broker is not down in that drop down. Okay? It's different for a couple market centers. So go ahead.
I was going to say, and notice that he didn't choose every single role. They give you all the roles that exist because those fields are mapped for both sides of a deal. But it doesn't mean you have to have every one of them.
Right, for sure. Yeah. So I've got Jess here for seller 1, listing broker for here. So this is where if your broker was not listed there, that you could put in here my broker, the name of the broker, and the broker's email, which is, I understand, is important for whatever the official email is. So
you can put mine in there again if you want, or whatever.
That's all right. I'll just put my broker's email at KW. It'd be really funny if that was an actual email.
Well, that's why I was saying what I said. And actually, that's a note to make while we're here, is some other e-signature programs will not let you use the same email address twice. Docusign does, as long as you change the sign order and have a sign order, which I'm assuming Clark was actually going to say next before I cut him off.
Yeah, no, you're good. That's a good point. No, and that's, again, it's the nice thing about Docusign. There's extra features here that we just haven't been able to do in other platforms. So the nice thing here is we can order the way that these are sent out and signed and completed. So right now you see these numbers on the far left-hand side. I see a 1 by both of these. Okay. If I see a 1 by both, or if a number is similar for any party or whoever the recipients are of the envelope, that means they'll get them at the same time. All right. So in this scenario, you, Jess, and my broker would get the documents to sign at the same exact time. All right. And me as the agent, the listing agent, would not receive this back fully signed until everybody did their job. Okay. Until Jess filled out the listing contract, we'll sign the listing contract, initialed everything, filled out the seller's disclosure, and also then the broker signed it. So to keep that in mind, right? Because if you want to get the agency agreement ratified or an actionable, an executed document, maybe the agency agreement needs to be sent first and signed by the broker. And then, okay, when you have time, as we're approaching market, get your seller's disclosure signed later. So,
yeah. And if there's ever an issue, like somebody discovers a typo or something, you have the ability to edit an envelope. And so, but only if people in the sign order have not accessed it yet. And so that's why it's another good practice to always have a sign order.
mm-hmm.
I literally teach my agents never leave 111 with all your people. You have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I don't care if there's 16 on there. Make sure there's a sign order because it helps prevent hiccups within the process of sending this envelope out.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. So I'll just put my email in there for the broker. That way we'll sign it as soon as you get done. So in this scenario, Jess is going to be sent the listing contract, the seller's disclosure, fill all that out. And then as soon as she's done with her two, then it'll be sent to me pretending to be the broker. All right. Yep. Now, while we're here, because we haven't really talked fully about like the buyer's side, right? And what kind of Josh was speaking about. Another nice thing that you can do here in envelopes is, okay, I've got everybody that's going to sign this here. I can add another recipient. I can add the other agent and have it automatically sent. Once everybody who signs the things they need to sign and it's done, it can automatically be sent. So you wouldn't choose pre-tagged roles or room participants per se. I mean, if you did put the other agent's detail or name and email address in that room details, then it would show up as a pre-tagged role. However, that could change if based on the deals and everything. So if you add an email address and I put in here the number 3, and if I put the co-agent, whoever that might be,
you can just put my email. I don't care.
but in this scenario, right, I can add somebody else, and that once Jess does her thing and the broker does his thing, right, probably not the best scenario, but think about it on the buyer's side. The buyers sign everything. And I know as long as they sign it, I've reviewed it well enough that as soon as they're done, the contract's ready to be sent over. Right. So I can put the listing agent there, have it automatically sent. That's a huge benefit to where I don't have to go back in after my clients on everything, add it to another share button or another envelope to have it sent over. It's just, it's done.
Another best use case for this is if you have a transaction coordinator that doesn't have access to your email, then they get an email when this envelope is complete and they don't have to spend a lot of time fishing through Docusign just to see if things are done. Yeah. So yeah, and just like you were saying, you're clicking. I was going to say, I use the receives copy all the time when I send stuff to my agents. So I send it to them from our market center, and then I get a copy in my personal email because I set receive copy afterwards.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, but let's just go ahead and send this off. Now know that there's a spot here that when Jess receives the email, that would be the email subject and the message. And that would be what she received.
Oh, and you can click next while we're doing this, but just note that whatever you write in that email, every recipient receives. So if you're writing something detailed and then you've added the agent on the other side, they're going to see that note too. So just be conscientious of what you're putting in that envelope.
Great point. All right, so when we hit next, this is the final review stage. Now, if you've used Docusign as an agent before and not the Keller Williams product, this is what you're probably familiar with, this e-signature side. And so this last part here, this is the final step to what we call a final review, and also helps you kind of visualize, okay, what needs to be done or what is going to be done once the recipients get this. So always bring attention to the top left. What you'll see in the drop down here are those recipients of the envelope, right? I got Jess, got my broker.
Only signers though. If you have somebody receiving a copy, you will not see their name here.
True. Yes. Good point. So everything that you'll see a little yellow circle by Jess's name, that tells me that as I go through these forms, and they're all scrollable here, that it'll show me where she has work to be done. That's where she'll initial. Of course, on the listing contract, every initial's there. And and you'll see the owner's signature there. If I prepared the document, all this would have been filled out. That's where my broker, they have the teal color here. That's where the broker would sign. And then if I go on to the seller's disclosure, here is the fun stuff that Jess gets to do as the seller.
Yay!
Right? So, but the color coding is important because this goes to show you that, okay, I know that these are the things that Jess will fill out. And it will be done. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead, knowing that that would all be well and good. I can go and review everything. I'm going to go ahead and I'll take a step back. Know that you can make some changes. If you did realize, you know what, I do need an extra signature here. This is helpful for the trust that you had mentioned prior. Just right. This is where you can put in a name. If anything you need to change, some of these can be manual change based on a place you need to add a signature, initial, date, sign, all this information.
Correct.
So, yeah.
No, there's lots of if and then things that are kind of one-offs that are hard to cover in this kind of 101 basic stuff. So that's where, again, reach out to your Market Center tech trainers, or if they are not training on Docusign yet, because your Market Center is just switching over and you still need support, Clark or I, or some of the other tech trainers are more than happy to help. Absolutely. And that, so that's where I would encourage you, use the email that you've seen written in this video, email me, or, put it in our Facebook group or anything. We're all here to help you. Yeah. Besides answers.kw.com, which is my lifeblood and my saving grace with KW Tech.
Yeah, that is the best practice. If we get questions for sure that we know an article succinctly answers for us and doesn't miss a thing, then yeah, you'll get an answers.com article for us.
Yep.
All right, so we'll go ahead and send this off. And before we get going on signing this, would this be a good place to visit the different type of envelopes, Jess? Are you thinking?
I would be happy to show you that.
All right.
So one thing that Docusign has done to make life simple for you is they've color coded everything, which makes me super happy. Like, former teacher and all that. I love color coding an organization like you would not believe. School supplies are like my favorite season. So one thing that I really appreciate Docusign doing is they have color coded your documents and your envelopes. So right here, I'm showing you one of my test opportunities. And what you can see is this is a draft and it's gray. So that means I have started the envelope, but I have not clicked that send button to send to somebody for a signature. The blue one means that I did click send, but all of my recipients have not signed, whether it's 1 or 10, somewhere along that chain has not completed the full envelope. If there was a mistake made and I needed to completely stop that envelope, edit it, cancel it for whatever reason, that's what the void coloring is. And then when I have things completely completed, everybody signed, all the signatures are on it and happy, that's when it turns green. So that's why naming your envelopes is so helpful, because you can see if you're lazy and you have every single one of them please Docusign, you would actually have to click the documents to see what are inside it. But if you name them in whatever way you want, so you can see I named it with just initials of things, then you can utilize that in a much faster way and be like, oh yeah, they signed the seller's disclosure, but they haven't signed this, or they didn't sign the seller's disclosure, but they signed that. And just remember that you can have 1 million envelopes for one opportunity. Not every single document has to be in one envelope, which is another best practice tool that I like to share.
Yeah, love that. Great. Cool.
And so, Clark, do you want me to stay sharing to show you how to sign?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this is the email that was sent to me automatically by Docusign. And so what I will do is I click the lovely yellow button and it says, please review. And then now it's saying that you're correcting it.
Oh, let me.
Did you do something?
I did.
Okay.
Yep, go for it. You should be good.
Try again. There we go.
I was playing.
You're not allowed to play while we're teaching. Okay, so what pops up, it says, please review, and then it says continue. When I hit continue, it will show me the document and it will say that the start button. So when I click start here, it'll say, do you want to initial? Typically what happens is if you have not already had a Docusign account created, it will pop up and let you actually choose your initials and signature. Because I have a Docusign account, that is why mine are auto-populating. And so you have the ability to either scroll and click or hit next, and it'll keep popping the fields for you. It's really up to you which way you sign. But just note that clients sometimes do get confused by that. They can do either one.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jess, you'll probably have to go up. I don't know if those others on the box you'll have to click. Did those sign?
See, I'm talking. So click, click, click.
Yep.
There we go. So the seller's disclosure, I can initial it, but you'll see that all those fields, kind of like when we were in the detail or the document section as an agent, these become open to me as a client. So I can type anything I want in here. I can select boxes. And you'll notice that it doesn't tell me that I have to fill out everything, but it gives me a field to fill out everything. So that's where you as an agent have to be purposeful in having the conversation with your clients about what actually needs to be completed and how to do that. And so there are all my signatures. I've done the whole thing. And then when I get to the bottom, I can hit finish.
Woohoo! You're my client.
Maybe. There we go. And then it says, you're going to get an email of the copy or of the document, and you can go from there.
Yeah. And so this is an important note here, right? Because this is why we don't have to add our clients to that room.
Exactly.
People, right? Because they're going to be able to have access. Not only can they create their own account with DocuSign right then, they're also going to get an email once, in this scenario, the broker signs. So I'm going to go ahead and share my spot here, right? Because we have the waiting for others.
Yep.
And so if I refresh, the nice thing I love about this, now it says needs my signature. That's because I put my email in as the broker. So you sit there, so you see that.
Can you click on the people? The little head icon? No, go back to the envelope. The little head icon. There you go. This is one of my favorite things.
I know. Yeah.
So this is why sign orders are so stinking important, because then you can see who is signed and who you're waiting on, when they signed it, and you'll also see the correct button here. So what I sign cannot be corrected, but you can correct anything for the broker.
That's right.
So that's where that void envelope comes into play, is if I sign something, we realize I signed it incorrectly, you can just copy and duplicate the envelope and resend it to me with the fix.
That's right. So cool. So I'll, again, pretend to be the broker, but just know that if you put yourself, of course, there's going to be forms that you sign as the agent. You can do that directly in the envelope, right, that you've sent out.
Yeah.
That's where it would be done. So I'll go through here and continue, and just like Jess has done, sign my spot. Here's what it looks like.
There you go.
Yeah, it's strange it came up. I'm surprised because I have signed stuff. But yeah, this is where you can choose or even adopt a new one. So if you have somebody that needs to sign a specific way, or as a trust or anything else, that's where you can also they can make these changes. So, all right, finish that. And now that everybody has signed, Jess has signed, my quote unquote broker has signed, successfully signed the envelope, and let me refresh here. Okay. I was expecting our little green box, but I guess not.
That always takes a second to populate, which freaks people out, but it does show up.
All right, awesome. So let's go ahead and go into our documents.
And it's just, I blame your internet connection, because I feel like it's a little slower. It's usually within 5 or 10 seconds you see these other things pop up.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So the great news is, because the envelope, let me just check the envelope one more time. Yeah, great. We got the green check mark there. And once that envelope is green and we got the check mark, the forms that we had prepared before, they're still there. The blue forms, this is where we prepared the documents. Now we have the signed, ratified, executed documents as needed. All right. So Jess, you had mentioned a lot of your agents' approaches have been, I'll create a folder and I'll just, whether it's agency agreements or the ones that are signed, and I'll move them into the proper folder just to keep things a little structured.
Exactly. And I also, while we're on this page, if you go all the way under the action button, you can change this from list view to tile view.
Oh, yes.
That's a thing that throws agents off because like my trainings are all tile view. So like yours is throwing me off by being in list view because I'm like, I never look at a list.
Well, here's the deal. Actually, when I get that because you're visual. Yeah, I know you're a visual, colorful learner. That the list view, I kind of kept that because I mean,
it's shorter.
Well,
it's
and
cleaner.
that's how I learned in Dotloop as well,
right?
Because it was in list view. So you got a couple of different options there, but I also like the card view because I can visualize what that document is.
So I just wanted to point that out while we were sitting here, because when you're in the card view or the tile view, the little circle button is hidden. You have to hover over the tile to get it to pop up. So that's where my agents, sometimes get lost because it's obvious on the list view, but not so much on the tile view. Absolutely.
All right. So we got our green documents that are signed. We're ready to go there. Anytime you send an envelope and it's completed, we got the green check mark that we saw in the envelope. There's going to be a certification document that also comes in with the envelope, and Docusign documents very, very well. So this document has all the details, who signed and clicked where at a certain time, and even IP addresses and everything else. So it's an extra added benefit. Some of our agents decide, you know what, I'm just going to archive this and it'll still be in the room. I can access it later. But if I archive this based on the active documents view, because you do have a drop down of seeing active documents, all documents archived, it at least gets those ones that I archived out of the way. Right.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Go ahead. What do you got? Something else, Jess?
Just while we're talking about it, when you select these documents and that little row of icons pops up, there is a archive button there. There's a download button there. There's also a delete button. For the sake of anybody using Docusign, the delete button is only useful for forms. You never want to delete a certification, and you never want to delete a signed copy of something. Best practices is archive them. The only reason they added delete was because those blue forms, those are those templates that we were talking about earlier, they get updated by Docusign on the back end. So if you had a client who has been looking for a house for 1.5 years, some of our agreements have changed. So you have the ability to delete the old template or agreement and then go back into the library and pull in the new one. There is no recovery that exists if you delete a signed document. So please, 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 when you're playing with this and learning how to use it, understand that archive is your best feature and option there.
Absolutely. Great point. Yeah, we just had some forms update July 1st. So
we did.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've got those signatures there, and just for the sake of connecting back to command, right? We talked about this back on Tuesday, what this would look like. But if I go to my opportunity, I'm under the listed compliance event. Right. So now I can begin to bring those documents because I hit the magical start a transaction button and I need to get my listing contract in here. A couple ways to do it. I can add the file here because I hit start a transaction and I made it really easy to create that room. It's going to bring only those PDFs that it won't show the forms here automatically, but it's going to show those green check marks, the ones that are automatically signed. This is actually a newer feature that just came out. If you wanted to see your archives, it's going to show my certification. If I wanted to show the forms, those were the two that had already signed up. So in some ways, know that it's only going to show when you bring them back into command, it's only going to show by default the ones that are PDFs that are signed or PDFs you manually upload. Okay. So I could say, as I clicked on the listing contract, that's my listing contract, and I'll see this went from not uploaded to uploaded. And then the seller's disclosure. There's another way to do this. You can click attach multiple files. If you've got a lot of files to attach, you can do this.
That's my favorite. Yeah. When I added that feature, it changed my life. You forgot to select Docusign at the top though.
Oh, I did. Thank you. Yep. So Docusign, and then it'll start reading Docusign and say, okay, we have our agency agreements, seller's disclosure. I can attach it that way as well. And that's a quick way. If I've got 5 or 6 or more to attach here, it's going to speed up your process. You can verify one last time. You can click on the file name there to see, yep, this is the agency agreement with just a signature. Good to go. and then I would submit to MC, and that begins a compliance approval process, right? So
Yep.
that's how we're taking everything that we've done in DocuSign. And while this might seem we're coming over just an hour on this training, I'm telling you, this becomes as fast as 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It really does. Even making an offer, not having an agency agreement, which we want to have an agency agreement first before
Right.
an offer. But you can do it all. And we have agents that do it easily under 20 minutes. So,
Well,
Jessica,
you know,
go ahead, Justin.
Clark challenged me when we first had DocuSign come out how quickly I could do this. So I've done everything from create a contact all the way through getting documents signed and pulling them back into Command in under 45 minutes. So you really, you know, I love transaction coordinators, don't get me wrong, but you really can master this and get comfortable with it and not spend a lot of time on it.
Absolutely.
But the best way to do it is to use it. So sell Diagon Alley, sell 123 Main Street, buy 123 Main Street for Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. I don't care. But put yourself in and sell your house to your husband 16 times, whatever it is. Just practice it, because you're gonna learn it. And just like Josh said he did, you know, he sold his parents' house and pretend way and things like that. It makes it so much easier once you've used it a few times.
Yes, especially if you're working with buyers, and my understanding, the majority of markets that we're in, it's minutes matter in submitting offers.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you don't want that added stress for yourself or your buyers. So,
can I throw in one more thing though before we wrap up? In DocuSign, can we go back to that? I'll let you drive if you want, unless you want me to.
Sure.
If you are working with the other side of the deal and you're receiving documents, you're going to use that add button again to pull in PDFs from your computer. So just like you're used to with other things. And you will manually have to add signature boxes onto these. Pre-tagged roles only work with those blue icon forms. And that's because they are templates. To me, I think of them like a printing press. You can rearrange the type on them 100 different times, but the base, the frame is never going to change.
Right.
The disclosure is always going to be a disclosure. You can just play with what's written on it. But a PDF, you're going to have to put things on it because it doesn't know yet. Yeah. So Clark's done a great job selecting a PDF at random.
Actually, I did prepare one.
I'm so proud of you. So when you go to recipients, you'll see that there is no pre-tagged role existing because this is a PDF we've uploaded. So that's where the room participants is nice. If you have the client details already in, you can select them quickly. And then, you know, set up your sign order and all of that and hit next and then put your stuff on. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we ended, was because I know people do both sides of the deal. Right. And they need, you know, I mean, it's nice to know how to use the forms, and those are going to be the majority of your business, but you also need to know how to get signatures on forms that are not yours.
Yeah. So if you're a buyer's agent, you're pulling the seller's disclosure off the MLS, and we know how crazy those can look. So whatever other agent uploads. Yeah. You're pulling that PDF, the same process. You're choosing root participants. And this is where you will have to do this manual process, right? Knowing that my seller, of course, in this example, the buyers would have initialed here, but that is where Jess would sign each and every page. This would be the process you would have to do for whatever form it is. Right.
And if you have more than one, especially, this is what Josh was also mentioning earlier about you can copy and paste fields. Yep. So like if I have myself as signer 1 and I have seller 2 right next to each other, so you see the yellow and the blue, you can click and drag and select multiple fields at one time. Starting in the upper left corner, you just drag over the fields like Clark is doing now, and then you can copy and paste and select multiple things. So that's a really nice, fast way to do things as well. Is just if you know how to cut off a few minutes here and there. And if you're resizing them, you know, it's nice because when you copy paste, it stays the resized one and not the default. Yeah. So you can just go so much faster here than you could in other e-signature programs.
Yeah, because I'm just hitting Control V right now. Right. It's just that.
Yeah.
Love it.
So yeah, that's one of those little tips that I love. But I'm so grateful for you, Clark, to pull in the seller's disclosure, because I literally have had phone calls from agents calling me saying, do I have to put every field on the seller's disclosure for my client? And I was like, you what? Well, I just spent the last hour and a half doing it, and then it disappeared. And I was like, you what? You know?
Yeah.
So I just like to throw that out there every time I do a Docusign training. If you are throwing that many boxes on, then you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah. We want to help. Please
Just
let
work
us know.
smarter, not harder, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's
Awesome.
the basics of Docusign. I know there's so many more things we could show you, but we've already run over our hour. So
yeah, as Jess and I were preparing this, it's like, it's probably about time. We've got a lot of momentum, people that have been using it. It's probably about time for 201. So
yeah.
look on their schedule. If you haven't liked this page yet, or if you're just coming here another way, like it, follow it, and you'll get other notices on other goodies that we have. So just great job. Thanks. For filling in and apologize for the connectivity stuff, but we made it through. So
it's okay. I totally got a good screenshot I'll send you in a minute. So
awesome. Thank you. All right. Greater Heartland, thank you so much. Reach out if you need anything. Connect with your Market Center Tech trainers. Tell them what you learned and share it with other folks. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.